Welcome. Northwestern Mutual Survey respondents estimated needing $1.46 million nest egg for a comfortable retirement. BlackRock's respondents estimated $2.1 million. I found these numbers hard to believe, so I decided to run a series of detailed, nuanced hypothetical analysis, starting with the case in this video, which showed that a nest egg of $918,665 will get the job done. However, this is not your number, but notice this number is about 56% less than the BlackRock's number. In this video, we'll discuss the assumptions and the calculations behind the number and how the nest egg grows to about $1.4 million by age 74, even after withdrawing close to $310,000 cumulatively from age 65. This is a hypothetical case study. A single filer retiring at 65 and taking Social Security at 65. Before we look at the specifics, a quick word about the disclaimers. This is a hypothetical case and it is not financial advice. It's for educational and entertainment purposes only. Recall Rachel Green's meltdown over her first paycheck in Friends? Who's FICA? Why is he getting all my money? That is the reality of the paycheck. There's a total compensation, which the HR stresses and includes base pay plus benefits. Then there's the base pay. Finally, there's a take home pay after everyone gets their cuts. We use the take home pay to pay mortgages, car loans, kids' daycare, travel, recreation, you name it. Therefore, that is the number to be replaced. Now, notice that the take home pay is about 50% that from the total compensation. You may have heard of the commonly cited guidelines such as saving 25 times your salary or saving $300,000 for every $1,000 of living expenses during retirement. Here is a different way to sanity check that number. Foundational finance textbooks use the perpetuity formula to calculate the present value, PV. In our case, the present value means the nest egg. Annual cash flow means the pre-retirement take-home salary. The assumed return is what we are assuming the market will give us. I have modeled 7% to 10%. So the formula is this. The nest egg equals the take-home pay. Annual cash flow is the take-home pay, pre-retirement take-home pay, divided by assumed return. Now on this slide, I have given three different numbers. And the numbers come with when I assume the market return as 7%. At 7% return, I need, or this particular retiree will need about $1.83 million to replace the total compensation. So if the retiree is trying to recoup $127,945, the total compensation before he retired, during retirement, then he needs a nest egg of $1.83 million. But if the retiree is trying to replace their take home pay, then at 7% market return, then that retiree in this hypothetical case will need only $918,665. Now, in this slide, we'll look at the nest egg that will be required at different assumed market returns. So at 7%, we have already talked, we will need, or the hypothetical retiree will need $918,665 at 7%. At 8%, you notice it drastically fell by almost $100,000 to $803,832. At 9%, it fell even further, and at 10%, it fell even further. Now, why am I taking 7 to 10%? Because historically, S&P 500 returned about 10%. Notice this since 1957. And over the last 40 years, S&P 500 returned about 11.5%. And these numbers are from the source, Fidelity Learn. What is the S&P 500 average return? And again, as a caution, past performance does not guarantee future results. So the model I assumed, at 7%, which is quite conservative compared to the historical S&P 500 returns, this particular retiree will require a nest egg of $918,665 at 7%, which is very conservative. Now, you may ask, what about the portfolio construction? What combination of stocks and bonds, whatever assets will give the 7%? That again, every person has to build for themselves or talk to their financial advisors. And it's a separate question which is not covered in this video. Now, that's fine. So we have talked about coming up with a nest egg. In this particular case, assuming 7% return, we came up with this particular number to replace the take-home salary of this particular retiree. Right? Now, these are the other assumptions made to develop this case. Filing status, single filer, we already said that. And the only retirement account this retiree has is a tax-deferred 401k. And at 65, we assume that this particular retiree, based on some sort of work service over so many years, Social Security, he gets about 29,000, say close to 30,000. The exact number is there on the screen. And for this particular retiree, the required minimum distributions that the IRS requires for this retiree to take, they begin at age 75. And since we do not know where this particular retiree lives, which state, so we have averaged about 4.5% state tax modeled. Now, the S&P the market returns, we assume that as 7% nominal with 3% inflation, so approximately about 4% real return. Now, one more thing to talk about is, which is not included in this model, is the sequence of returns risk. So what is considered in this is an ideal environment where every year the market is giving this particular retiree 7% nominal return. But that may not happen in real life. So there is a sequence of returns risk. What happens if the year this retiree retired, the market loses 20%? So that's a different thing. It will be a subject of another video. Now, another thing that is considered but not in this video, stay tuned, subscribe, so we can discuss this really interesting stress test in the follow-up second video to this. In the follow-up, we'll discuss long-term care for 3 years, beginning at age 82. Now, other assumptions are, we assumed a full year of Social Security starting at 65 and withdrawals also starting at 65. But if someone's retired, say in July, then everything will get prorated, right? So now, okay, so the next thing is about the actual retirement, the first year money that's needed. His annual take-home pay is $64,307 before retirement, and now I have added one more thing. I said in this particular case, in this hypothetical case, the would-be retiree has paid off his mortgage, before he retired. So in the last year, no. So there's no more mortgage to pay. So now his annual expenses have suddenly decreased by the amount of the mortgage. I just took 18,744. Now, okay, I removed mortgage, but since he retired, he has to pay for, and I'm saying he, she, them, uh, they, uh, that person has to enroll in Medicare and have model Medicare costs with Part B, Part D, Plan G, annual deductibles, model out-of-pocket costs, all those things, about 7,200, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. But that number, this math, comes to about $52,763 as the money, as the amount needed in the first year of the retirement. Now, so is it enough if the retiree just gets the 52,763? And how will he get that? So that is the required spending. $52,763 is the required annual spending. And we have assumed that this particular retiree will get about 30,000. The exact number is there on the screen, $29,868, which leaves a gap of $22,895. That's what he needs to, the retiree needs to withdraw from the 401k. But if the retiree withdraws only the exactly 22,895, then he has to pay taxes from that. So it in the model includes the combined federal and state taxes. So the retiree actually withdraws that much more to pay the federal and state taxes and still be left with the required spending, 52,763. Now, so once the retiree withdraws this money, so he withdrew this money, 25,506. The retiree started with $918,665. The market grew by 7%, and then he withdrew this month, and then the retiree withdrew 25,506. But even then, since the market gave the retiree 7%, so the year-end nest egg actually increased a bit, 900, and became $957,466. Now, if we look at the percentage withdrawal, it comes to only about 2.78% from the retirement nest egg. 25,506 is only about 2.78%, which is quite conservative, even when compared to the Trinity study, which said 4% withdrawal from the nest egg is sustainable. If the retiree takes according to the Trinity study, this particular retiree can withdraw $36,747, but in this case we are just modeling everything like an ideal so the retiree just takes what is needed and the rest grows, right? The rest is left in the retirement nest egg and which will grow. And in case you're interested, there is the reference for the Trinity study. Now, this last but one slide, is data heavy. So we may need to look at this a bit closely. So now, it has a lot of columns. So I'm going to project them sequentially or one after another. The first column is the age, and you see something called DIV, that is the IRS term divisor, and it kicks in only after the person reaches 75. That's when the required minimum distributions begin, and then there's some formula from the IRS, but that kicks in only after 74. So right now the divisor is empty. Now the next one is about the transactions that are happening and the cash need. We have established the cash need in year one is $52,763. And then there's the Social Security contribution. That's what this person is getting from the Social Security or expected to get from the Social Security. And which means he needs to fill the shortfall, the gap between the cash need and Social Security by withdrawing money from the 401k. And the retiree also paid the taxes from this withdrawal. So at the end of the year, the 401k balance is $957,466. Now, at age 66, considering inflation is 3%, so cash need increases by 3%. Social Security, we also model Social Security also increases by 3%. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's a model. So we just assumed cash need increases by 3%. Social Security also, the COLA also increases by 3%, and which also makes the withdrawal from the 401k a bit larger, and taxes will be larger as a result. So even then the 401k ends with a larger balance. Now, so at the end of 74 years, I mean 1, 2, 3, after taking about $310,000, so if I just combine all those things, it comes to like close to $310,000 withdrawal. But even then the 401k grew and came close to $1.4 million. Now, which is good. Now, but again, the sequence of returns may not work, may cause some problems in this, and the Mr. Market, may be in good mood or bad mood in any given year. So the market returns fluctuate, so it will not be like an ideal thing, but in this particular model I just assumed every year it's 7% clockwork. Okay, now what are the remaining columns here? The remaining columns are, they're all zeros for now because they're not modeled, and some of these things, let me talk about them. There's the LTC add-on, that is long-term care. So if the person is hospitalized and needs to stay in a facility for, a year or 2 or 3, then that becomes quite expensive. And actually I did that, and that will be shown in the companion video. So stay tuned, subscribe so you'll not miss it. It's really interesting. And we'll see, you will see whether this model will be sustainable after the IRS forced withdrawals, after 75, forced withdrawals by the IRS, according to the divisor. And I have also modeled 3 years of long-term care facility costs. I have the number. I use $762,851 as 3-year nursing home bill, and then we'll see whether this portfolio, not portfolio, whether this model will sustain itself or not. So LTC add-on. In this particular model, I assumed the LTC will kick in at 82. Maybe the person falls ill. It's an assumptions, right? So 82 to 84, 82, 83, 84, 3 long-term care years. So then the retiree needs to withdraw extra money from the 401k. IRMAA is Medicare income related surcharge. So if there's more income, Medicare just becomes more expensive. So it is zero for now. But if, let's say, if the retiree and he needs to he I mean sorry the retiree needs to pay for long-term care and he withdraws $250,000, then suddenly after 2 years his IRMAA will increase. So again, since there's no LTC here, there's no IRMAA here. Now federal tax reduction, again, that's goes with the LTC. Now surplus added, and the other two columns related to surplus again are moot here, because the retiree is taking just what is needed to live. The cash need, he's taking only exactly what he needs. Sorry, I keep saying he. Whatever the retiree needs, that's what is being withdrawn from 401k. So there's no surplus. But once the IRS says you must withdraw so much money, then there will be surplus, and that surplus can be invested in another fund, whatever fund the retiree chooses. And again, assuming the fund will return 7%, that will grow separately. So all these things will be part of the second video. So stay tuned for that, and please subscribe.